Max and min show you the highest and lowest values, or earliest and latest if you're using dates. I've already written the formula over here. I've just got every month of a certain year and the sales figures for each month. I can eyeball this data and probably pick out that that's the lowest, and then down here that's the highest. But I can over here use a formula of max and min just to bring those values into the cells there. I could also just highlight this and look at my status bar, min and max, which matches those figures there. If you don't have min and max on your status bar, just right click and you can tick them here to add them in. I'm going to incorporate some formulas that I've used in previous videos, such as if and index and match. So if you get confused with what I'm doing here, you can go back and watch my lookup videos and my if video. Max and min on its own are fairly simple. I've already written the formula here, equals max, and then it's just the range B5 to B16. So the formula says equals max, and then I just highlighted this range. And the same for min, equals min, and then highlight the range. We'll just do it from scratch. So let me delete those. Equals max, double click on that one, highlight the range, enter. Equals min, double click, highlight the range, enter. Sometimes it's easy to visualize this, so I can just put my cursor anywhere in this data. On my menu, go to insert, on here, either recommended charts, or if you know you want a column chart, which is what I'm going to do here, just click on it. And I just come up with a basic column chart here. So I can fairly easily pick out that that's the highest, September 7826, and then April is the lowest. If your figures are close together, sometimes it might be hard to tell. So if these were fairly close in value, I might not be able to tell if April or June was our lowest. I'm going to have a whole video on charts. This is one of the most basic charts. I'm just going to quickly format it here just to show you what you can do to highlight these values. I'm going to use my Control 1 shortcut, which is for formatting. If I'm in this cell here and I do Control 1, because I'm just in this cell here, it brings me up my Format Cells dialog box. So I can look at the number, alignment, font, and do the formatting for that cell. If I've clicked on a chart here, and you can see when I click on this chart, I get other options up here, chart design and format. They weren't there before. If I click there, they're not there. So when you click on certain elements, it's the same with tables and pivot tables. When you click on them, you then get extra options up here. So if you can't find it, it might just be that you've not clicked on it. There we go. I can press Control 1. And because I've clicked on my chart, I get my format options here relating to the chart. What I usually do is I just get rid of these lines, delete, or I just make them a lighter shade of grey so they're not as visible. Because I'm going to add data labels where I have the numbers for each month above the bar here, I'm actually just going to remove this to make a bit more room. I want to keep my months. These bars are quite narrow and there's a big gap in between. So I'm just going to click on here. It highlights all of them. If you're not sure what you're highlighting, you can go to your Format tab over here and it shows you what you're highlighting up here. So sometimes, like if I were to pick on this month here, it's actually just the point for January, not the whole range. I want to look at the whole range. So now I can just go and select it up here. And I just come over to my formatting over here and I'm going to change the gap width. Maybe even just something like 60, and that looks a bit better. So within a few seconds, I've made that chart look quite nice. Obviously up here, my title might relate to something like sales 2022, 2023. You might want to amend that or link it to a cell. I might have the word sales 2023 written here, either here or as the header, and I can use that instead. I would probably change my bars depending on your company colours, but I'd probably just have it as a grey. Then I can incorporate other colours, like green is normally something good or positive, red is negative or low. So I might not want to use green as my main colour here. So got options on this paint bucket here. I'm on board at the moment, I actually want the fill. And you've got options here, but you just change the colour. And I'm just going to have it in a dark grey. And I'm just going to have no border or the border the same colour as my bars. So that looks a bit better. To make this more informative, I can add the values. They're going to be my data label. So if I just click here, chart design, add data labels. And you can choose where you put them. I would normally have them outside end like that. But there's an option inside end, but then you'd have to change the font to white. And inside base, I didn't even see them, they're just at the bottom of my, they just come along here. But outside end is probably the best. So there I can actually then see that that's the lowest and that's the highest, those values there. What I can also do is change this colour. So the lowest is red and the highest is green. I can change this bar. So I could say, let's have that in green and this in red. However, I've just changed the colour for April and September. If now this isn't the highest and I just put 1000 here, that's the lowest, this isn't updating the colour. I would want that to be red and then this to be green. So that's not the way to do it. I'm just going to Control Z to undo all of that. What I can do is use my max and min and my if formula. So let's just add my max and min over here. And I'm just going to start writing. Hopefully you'll see what I'm doing. Equals if this cell here is the maximum in this range, then I want to pull that figure back into this cell here. Then I'm going to add that to my chart. So let's just go ahead and do that. I might need to go through the whole thing and for you to actually understand what I'm doing, so bear with me. So equals this cell here, if that equals the max of this range here, F4 to fix that range. That's my logical statement. Is this cell here the highest or the maximum in this range? What do I want to do if it is the maximum? I just want to bring that figure in. I want to see what that figure is. B5. If it isn't, I don't want to see anything. Enter. Then when I drag that formula down, it brings back the figure here. So it's going through each line. So at the moment I'm on this cell. Is this the highest or the maximum in this range? Yes, it is. So going for the true is bringing back the value in this cell here. For this one, it's saying, is this B10 the highest in this range? And it's not. So it's going by the false, which is blank. If I were to change this value, it's dynamic. And you can see my charts updated as well. Control Z, undo. And we're going to do the same for min. Equals if this equals min, so the lowest in this range here, F4, close your min statement. Now we're back to our if, the logical test. So that's finished, comma. If it's true, return what's in this cell here. If it's false, don't return anything. So this isn't the lowest in this range, so it's returning blank. It's found that this is the lowest. And again, let's just change it. There we go. We can then add these elements to our chart. It's just going to add one bar for the max and one bar for the min. Then we can just change those colours. So over here on our chart, chart design, select data, add. Series name, it's going to highlight max. Our series values, I'm just going to delete this. They're these. OK. Add again. Series name, min, and delete that and just highlight my range there. OK. OK. So this isn't exactly what I wanted. I just need to do a bit of formatting here. So let's click on here. I can click on any of these bars and I want to do an overlap of 100% because I want this red bar and this blue bar to be on top of my original bars. So if you just keep an eye on here, I'm just going to drag this to 100%, or you can manually type in 100% there. That's what I wanted. I want the lowest in red and the highest in green. If I go to my format, just to make sure I'm picking the right thing, this is why it's a good idea to actually name your series so you know what you're looking at rather than series 1 and 2. I want my max And let's go to my colours, fill, green. Let's pick any green here, that one's fine. No line, no border on the outside. And we'll do the same for our min. And the fill, I want in red. That one's fine, no border. This gives me a clear indication of what's going on. April's our lowest month, September's our highest, everything else is kind of in between. Rather than me just trawling through all these figures trying to work it out for myself. I can amend these and the colours are going to move with it. So let's say January is the highest. It's green. November's the lowest. It's red. And if I have a chart like this, just another formatting thing here, format, I normally say no outline. I'd probably have this on its own sheet and I would actually go to view and remove grid lines. And then this looks a lot nicer. And I could just have a title, let's just say it's sales 2023. And let's add chart element, chart title, above chart. And then I just clicked on this and I'm saying equals this. You can have a formula in here so your chart's dynamic. I'll show you that in a chart video. Now we're doing more formulas. I just want to show you how you can think creatively and what's the best way to present your data. And for me, this is the best option to highlight the highest and lowest sales rather than someone just trawling through these figures here. I'm just going to remove that. I'm just going to bring my grid lines back just so it's easy to see what cells I'm working in. Grid lines. As well as max and min, there's also large and small. So max is the highest, min is the lowest. Sometimes you might want to know the second lowest or third lowest, or the second highest and third highest. So we're going to do similar to max and min. I'm just going to go ahead. For the second highest, I want large, and I'm going to have to specify the number 2. So equals large. In this range, I want to find the second largest. And you can see in my syntax, my array is my range, comma, K, that's my number. I want the second highest, so the second largest. So that's 2, close. So obviously, had I done 1, that's just my max. So let's do 2. And that's our second highest. This was my highest, but then I added these 2 dummy values here. I'm going to keep those in. So that's our second highest. And the same for small, equals small. My array, I'm looking in this range here for my second lowest, comma, 2. And that's this figure here as I added that dummy 1000 there. And just do the third, obviously you can just keep going, fourth, fifth, equals large, three, equals small, 3. There we go. It's fairly simple, so I'm not going to go into too much detail. I would say I'm going to have a video on rows and columns. They're just a useful function that you can use inside some of your other formulas. So rather than specifying the number 2 or the number 3, to make it more dynamic, we can overtype that with the row function. But just watch that video and then you'll see what I mean. We can also incorporate our index and match. So I know that that's the second highest value and second lowest, but really I want to know, well, which month is the second highest and which month is the second lowest. So that's when we can use index and match. I'm just going to copy these down here. So you'll see in my index and match, I'll be using these functions inside of it as part of my match. So although the formula might look long, I'm just wrapping this in my index and match. So let's just do that from scratch here. Equals index, the month name, I want to pull in the month, not the value, F4, match, my lookup value, it's not really one value, or I could reference the value I found before in a separate cell. But here I'm going to say match, but instead of that I'm going to just write the formula that was in here. So my match, my lookup value is the max of this range, F4, close, comma, and my lookup array is this range again. My lookup value is the maximum value in this range, and my lookup array is the range. I just need to absolute reference that range, comma, 0 exact match, bracket, bracket, enter, January. And I'll write it again from scratch, but it's the same for min, but just min instead of max, equals index, month name, F4 to absolute reference, comma, row number, we don't know, match, lookup value, that's going to be my min. So whichever the minimum value is in this range is my lookup value, F4, close bracket, comma, and my lookup array is this range. I'm looking up the minimum value of this range in this range, F4, comma, 0 for an exact match, bracket, bracket, enter, November. So max Jan, min November, max Jan, min November, that's correct. And again, I could just quickly change that to see if it's dynamic, so this should change to February. Yes. And these update too. And now that's my second highest and third highest. Let me just Control Z to undo. And the same for here. Equals index, month, F4 to absolute reference, comma. So I need a match, open bracket, large, open bracket, the largest in this range. So I want the second largest in this range. Let me just F4 to absolute reference that, 2. That's my large statement written. I'm now back to match. So comma, my lookup array is here, F4, 0 for an exact match, bracket, bracket, enter. September's the second highest. So I had this second highest here. That's correct. That is September. Let me just drag this over. It's bringing me the same, but I can just change this to small. For the second smallest, I've still got my number 2 for second there. Small. April. We already had that figure there, 1755. Yes, that's correct. And I'm just going to copy and paste this. Copy, escape, and then Control V here. And I can just change that to 3. And I can copy and paste this one. Copy, escape, cursor in there, Control V, and change that to 3. Let's just check these figures. Is May the third highest, 6976, 6976, and December the third lowest. That's correct. That's the figure there. That's correct. You may want to go back and look at my if video if you're not quite sure of this, and my index and match if this has confused you slightly. But hopefully seeing all these videos together, it's all going to make sense and help you be more creative as well when you're writing formulas and planning how you're going to visualize your data.